Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to OPC Season 2. I'm Kevin AVRL Walker, joined with me this evening, Matt Pixie Carroll, as we're about to head into day 2 of week number 3, closing out the first round robin.
Yeah, we are almost there, and this is the big weekend, for the team on your screens right now, that being Ardeont, who, of course, have their first match today up against Blank Esports. So for Ardeont this weekend, to round off the first round robin is a gauntlet run of facing the other teams in this top 4 to prove that they truly are number 1. They've already taken down AHQ as of yesterday. Next up is going to be Blank Esports.
Absolutely, it's the hit list for Ardeont, and now it's going to be Blank's turn to take them on. Blank Esports yesterday already had a match against Flash Wolves. Fortunately, they lost that one 1-3. Now, the opportunity to redeem themselves once again, going up against Ardeont instead.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a tricky one for them because yesterday was as well a rematch of the finals. We don't know exactly where Flash Wolves and Ardeont stand relative to one another truly because they're tied for first and haven't played each other, but certainly that itself would indicate that this is Blank's match to win here. They are the ones who have something to prove coming into this. And to that end, it means Ardeont are kind of just looking to pick up another win before they finally get to face off against Flash Wolves tomorrow. So there's a lot on this matchup, and it could potentially be an extremely close one, but we have to be honest in saying the expectation is still Ardeont win, which means Blank have to show otherwise.
And we talk about the fact that yesterday was a testing ground for Ardeont. Are they going to get punished by the top 3 teams from last season? It turned out AHQ did push them a little bit, but not quite enough. Is Blank now going to be the next team that really pushes Ardeont? We talk about, are they actually going to beat Ardeont? Do Blank have a chance here? I think you're right. It is up to Blank to make that statement now because Ardeont do look favored.
And the interesting thing about that as well is, by the way, Blank are also currently tied with AHQ in the standings. So you've got Ardeont and Flash Wolves tied, and you've got Blank and AHQ tied, but Ardeont haven't played Flash Wolves, Blank haven't played AHQ, and they're not going to play them until tomorrow. Yeah. So you don't even have that relative yardstick of, okay, AHQ lost and Blank's tied, will Blank lose? It's really hard to say.
Let's go over these updated standings from yesterday. Flash Wolves and Ardeont sitting at the number 1 spot, 5-0, after taking wins yesterday. Blank Esports and AHQ sitting in 3rd place, 3-2, after losing yesterday. Hong Kong Attitude 2-3 at 5th place. Machi sitting at 2-4 in 6th place. Mega Thunder in 7th place, 1-4. Limited Supreme rounding out the table, 0-6, yet to find their first victory in the matches tonight. Starting things off, Ardeont versus Blank Esports, then AHQ take on Hong Kong Attitude, and we finish with Mega Thunder and Flash Wolves.
And this is quite an interesting day. I mean, we've already kind of said we're finishing off the first round robin. We're finally going to have the exact standings of who is better than who. And today I think is interesting because in there we've got the continuation of this kind of brawl within the top 4, but then we've also got something really interesting happening in the middle ground. It's the rematch of AHQ and Hong Kong Attitude. And it's a really interesting situation. A win for Hong Kong Attitude would have them tied in that 4th place spot. A loss would have them potentially picking up a tie against the team below them, which is Machi Esports, for a 6th place tied finish. That is a dramatic difference and will really, really change their ability to hold on to a top 4 spot across the second round robin.
Absolutely, as we are about to finish that first round robin now with only 2 match days remaining, including a super day tomorrow with 4 matches. Let's talk a little bit about this match as we start things off. What were the good parts about Ardeont? I want to start off by saying, for Ardeont, they still had the magic firepower of both DM and Ursa. Huge plays by both of them. Where did they go wrong? When Ursa was shut down, when DM couldn't find those big sticks, AHQ were able to punish some of the ideas and some of the plays that we have seen in the past from Ardeont. Somewhat aggressive, very greedy in most cases. AHQ did take advantage, but overall, unfortunately not enough times.
And there was also a bit of a turning point in there as well on Assault, where suddenly AHQ just kind of seemed to collapse a little bit. Ardeont stayed on fire. And this is, by the way, AHQ who were already down in that series anyway. So when they were firing on all cylinders, they were punishing some things, but Ardeont was still overcoming them. And then Ardeont had the mental fortitude to keep going. So what that says is, this is a team against whom you cannot ever slip up. The moment you do, the moment you kind of, lapse just that little bit, or the moment the pressure gets to you, this team is going to run away with that and going to shut you out of the entire series even. So that's something that every team is now going to have to be cognizant of coming up against Ardeont, and it is going to be Blank coming up against them right now.
And that is the difficulty for Blank because they've already taken a loss against Flash Wolves and some of the weaknesses were shown in that matchup. And this is now the yardstick for how Ardeont may do against Flash Wolves tomorrow. And that's going to be very interesting. Both teams going to get this experience against Blank Esports. Which team looks more comfortable? Flash Wolves, they had a fairly convincing run. They did take one map loss. Ardeont, they're going to go away with a 3-0 or not. If they do, it would certainly set the stage for their meeting with the Flash Wolves.
It absolutely would. So there's something else at play here that I kind of want to touch on, and that's this thing of relative standings. So Blank have yet to play AHQ as well. AHQ got 3-0'd by Ardeont. That is worth bringing up here, but if I'm not mistaken, they had a slightly better result themselves when they played Flash Wolves. They actually went 3-1 against Flash Wolves. Blank also went 3-1 against Flash Wolves. So an 0-3 arguably has them on par with AHQ if you were to really kind of grasp at straws for a comparative metric. If they had a 3-1 result tonight, it would imply that they can actually take it to Flash Wolves and Ardeont rather, better than AHQ can, which would be a good thing for Blank because it's this weird kind of situation whereby they could technically have lost the series, but feel much more comfortable in that top 4 than their counterpart, who they're currently tied in 3rd place with in AHQ. Because like I said, AHQ also have a tough matchup against longtime rivals now Hong Kong Attitude. I say rivals across this tournament. The number of times Hong Kong Attitude were able to overcome AHQ in the last round robin kind of speaks for itself. So there's this kind of meta thing at play here of, excuse me, not just wanting to be in top 4, but wanting to get that 3rd place finish so that you can be secure in top 4.
Absolutely, and I think it really will depend on how the second round robin shapes out as well. Who exactly finishes in that top 1, or rather the first place finish of the round robin regular season play, because you have now 2 teams fighting for that position. First equal Flash Wolves and Ardeont. There will be a Clay Cup winner after tomorrow. Well, you kind of have to think about, do they then, going into round robin number 2, who is going to keep that lead going? Does the 3rd place or the 4th place team look to get ahead and even steal that number 1 spot? And that's certainly going to make the playoffs entry very interesting, because exactly where you place in the regular season is going to determine who you face first. Yeah,
and actually, just by the way, technically, we may not have a resolution to that, because of course, if Blank do actually win tonight, and then Ardeont were to win tomorrow against Flash Wolves, then actually Ardeont and Flash Wolves would still be tied for first in terms of that overall scoreline, which would be quite interesting. I don't know how likely that is, and honestly, it's pretty clear it's going to be dependent on the series against Blank that we're about to see.
Well, the head-to-head would determine still who is ahead.
You're right, the head-to-head would technically determine it, but in terms of scoreline, there would be that draw. So it creates a slightly muddier matchup. So here we are, Ardeont going to be taking the first pick. It is going to be Lijiang Tower, and of course for tonight's series against Blank, Ardeont do have the home side, earning themselves map picks 1, 3, and 5, being Control, Assault, and Hybrid respectively, and Blank will get map picks 2 and 4 in the first Hybrid, and also the Escort map.
And of course, the team that picks the map also chooses the starting side, and Ardeont now picking Lijiang Tower once again. This is the standard test against Ardeont. How well are you going to fare against them on this? AHQ did have a fairly decent run on Lijiang against Ardeont, but we talk about the fact that AHQ did struggle later on. Now we talk about Blank as well. They have a fairly decent start, but it is towards that later part of the evening, later part of that series against Flash Wolves, that they started to also falter.
And the interesting thing here is Control is always, and probably always will be, by the way, Blank's strongest map mode in general, or rather strongest game mode. And I would say in that Lijiang Tower, as much as it's neutral territory, it's always going to be a really strong map for Blank. And in fact, last night, I believe it was Flash Wolves' pick. They made a point to actually not take them to Lijiang Tower. They took them to Nepal and still ended up losing against Blank. And Nepal, technically speaking, is actually Blank's weakest Control pick. So Blank's still certainly on fire on this particular map mode. So this is actually Ardeont's biggest challenge to overcome to kick off this series.
And certainly if they do, that's going to put them very much in the lead, not in terms of just the literal fact that they have a 1-0 lead upon Blank, but we talk about this, their best game mode, that is Blank's best game mode, is on Control. And specifically, Lijiang is a pretty good one, that they've had a good record against other teams in the past, but interestingly enough for Ardeont, they still don't want to show their cards or their hand on any other control map so far.
Yeah.
It's just going to be this one.
Yeah, we've really not seen a whole lot of what this team's capable of. Hiding a lot of strengths as much as they are also showing a lot of strength. And let's see if we will have another display of strength. Eat You Up and Husk going to be out the gate on a McCree Doomfist. Something we haven't seen too much out of them, but they have had success when it has come out. And Ardeont keeping DM on the Tracer.
And Erster back on the Doomfist as well. We talk about him being
That's
the
a
scariest
great
Doomfist
dive.
tournament. We might just find out why.
That's a good trade back though onto Republic. Blanca not going to go over without a fight here. And Shrill, unfortunately going down, no counter pick, but good follow-up by DM. Ardeont have got themselves set up on the point. But that wasn't a big blowout fight. That was just 2 for 1, and Blank did get the counter trade in. Ardeont, though, very much in control of the series.
And even the 1-for-1 right off the top of the bat, that was a better trade for Ardeont, all things considered. Losing your DPS, even that flashbang DM, he got flashbanged around the corner. That means Edub doesn't have an opportunity to follow up on that. And the first cap did go over to Ardeont. Blank Esports, not a lot of competition so far.
By the way, that pick onto Jeff is significant because there is a window now where the EMP is not available, but I didn't recognize that there's that window, so they try and shut it as quickly as possible by diving the backline. Ursa's going to pay for it with his life, but they're trading back on Trill, and now actually Jeff is going to have the EMP anyway. Oh dear, Eat You Up going down to the dive there. They're trading even, but they're still going to have to try and fight into this EMP, and that could really neuter Huss's mobility. Plus, Ardeont are still actually on the points. They need to find an opportunity to go in. Going to go ahead for it now, and need to get the kills converted quickly. Sound barrier's out. It's going to make it very difficult.
EMP as well.
Meteor Strike goes out just before the EMP, yeah. But already Gunbear has gone down on the side of Blank. They demech Michelle, but they need to get a lot more done than that. Sound Barrier is going to give them a lot more time to play with as the Meteor Strike comes out of Erster now. Looking to get just kind of in the middle of the fight for maximum disruption. They finally close off on Michelle, but Erster taking out his counterpart means very lean now on the DPS front is Blank. Eat You Up needs to get a lot of work done. DM and that pulse bomb can start to close this out. And in this whole time, Ardeont is still just getting time on the point while Blank ball this one out.
This is a very long skirmish for Blank. You're absolutely right, because they're not able to convert this into any meaningful progress. No progress whatsoever. And Ardeont, they keep that timer ticking. Ardeont probably had to spend a lot of ultimates to continue their objective run, but that's very important for the team. And they're looking to close this one out before Blank even get 1%.
That would be really, really incredible. This has been a bit of a close showing in terms of the shape of the fights, but it has been Ardeont just overcoming Blank every single time. So now Gunbear out with the Transcendence. Eat You Up going to go wide on the Pulse Bomb, and they all have no way of avoiding the self-destruct. They get the kills through though, and Animo goes off the side. Erster, by the way, also swapped onto the Genji, opting off the Doomfist, and they've got a window now, even as they are lacking Gunbear and RQT. It has to be. They don't have the healers, but they've got to get on it. They're in the overtime, and it looks like they're going to be able to get it through. Ardeont giving them the space there, but Blank need to reinforce quickly. There we go. The closeout on Michelle should give them that extra time to play with.
And Ardeont got really hungry there. They wanted to go for the spawn camp. Blank Esports said they didn't want any of that. They came out, they found the correct picks, forced a couple members to even suicide, and Ardeont couldn't hold on to that point, but 99-0 still. It's a very big run for Blank to try and make up the difference here. Putting Eat You Up onto the Tracer, now he's going to compete with DM 1-to-1. Ursa on the Genji, like you said. We've seen this power from him yesterday as well.
Eat You Up and Husk both close to their ultimates, but they need to not go down to the pressure from Ardeont while trying to apply that pressure themselves. Sound Barrier is good, but that's a great pick to close out on Ursa to start with. Husk can just Meteor Strike to safety and does exactly that as Republic gets picked. And Husk looks like he's going to be able to get out with his life. That is a good save there. That counter trade would have been very good for Ardeont, so Blank able to keep that first fight tidy.
So one of the few times you see Ardeont not have that ultimate advantage. We praise their level to have this ultimate economy that's so superior to other teams. Blank Esports going toe-to-toe with them right now. They do need to keep this continuing.
Yeah.
They can keep this lead going, get the picks where they can find them, just like that one. This is how Blank gets back in the game.
And that's while DM was trying to take out Gunbear. They do lose Husk for it, but again, they're dealing with Republic, who has been a big proponent of a lot of these dives, but now Erster getting big on the backline. You shut down one, but you've got to shut down the other. Now with the Dragon Blade out, looking to close it out onto Trill to start it off, but actually having a bit of a hard time of it. Loses a chunk of health, is vulnerable, but he's still getting the damage and has retreated successfully to that Lucio healing field. Going to be just fine. Even gets a deflect kill on Eat You Up for good measure, and that should be Ardeont sitting pretty on this point here. Blank are going to go for one last ditch attempt, but even with the Sound Barrier, do not touch the point. They didn't go down without a fight, but they did go down.
And the staggered kills at the end there that Ursa got on top of Blank Esports just made it all that more difficult for Blank to come back in. RQT and Gumbo were the first ones down. That's absolutely going to affect your ability to stay on that cap. Without the healing, without the sustain, you will eventually lose that cap on out without good trades either. Then RQT and Gumbo respawn first. RQ2 actually used the sound barrier right away to try and get the team back on the cap, and it just wasn't enough. The only two people that were in that sound barrier were himself and Gumba. Huss tried to get on quite early, he died straight away. So all the kind of staggered kills that Ursa got beforehand, that's what put the nail in the coffin for Blank.
I want to give some credit to Blank here. They are shutting down a member of Ardeont that has often got away with absolute murder. Someone who rarely seems to die no matter how aggressive he goes, and that is Republic. But on top of that, they're struggling to actually close out on DM and Erster after killing Republic. That's something that they're going to need to fix up a little bit for this one, is Republic going in for the dive.
The thing is, even if Republic goes down, he has managed to get trades, or rather Ardeont managed to get trades. Trill goes down, Eat-Up goes down, somebody on the Blank side does go down if Republic does as well.
Good aggression onto Michelle to demech him, and that's going to be the first blow of this opening skirmish, but Eat You Up, a much more convincing blow as they trade a couple of spots here and there. They do pick out Erster and going to close out on Republic as well, but they're really relying on Huss, who is going to lose his life there, and that's going to be all it takes for Ardeont to get set up on this point, and Michelle even going to get the mech back for good measure.
It's very difficult to get favorable trades against Ardeont. You see what happens there. You want to get a kill onto someone like Michelle's mech, that's very good. You didn't actually secure Michelle herself. Then you have a situation where Republic comes in, triple kill for him. You see him on the kill feed. That's all of him. He didn't have that much support. Finding Eat Up with that bump kill as well, landing from his jump, that was very important. Finding the correct pickouts. We do have a pause right now just to sort out some technical issues from the player side, but overall, good start for Ardeont. Nothing too unexpected.
Yeah, and just want to mention something as well. Right at the end there, they got a DMech on Huwu. That was DM following it up, knowing that there was no one who could really contest him in that particular instant. So Huwu is now going to have to probably take a dive, is going to give Ardeont plenty of time to cap this point, and then retreat and get set up. And you see that already, Eat You Up is backing up a little bit. Huwu actually was close enough to base that he's remaked quickly, but Ardeont well set up.
The other thing we have to consider from the Blank Esports side is traditionally they have been weak in these opening skirmishes, and that's showing itself once again with Ardeont always taking the early and favorable picks once more. He's getting Gumba quite early, and Blank just have to back off.
They do, and they can't really do some damage onto Republic here either. He's just getting too much healing. And they're struggling to kind of break through this chokehold here without that Orb of Discord from Gunba. So that target priority coming out of DM is really helping Ardeont.
And this needs to be the kind of situation where Blank can come in and win the second fight. Because that one pulse bomb shuts down Blank's entire push, they have to reset once again. They give a little bit more time to Ardeont to build their own ultimates, and suddenly that progress just goes up.
As the dive from Erster, instantly finding Gunba is DM, and Erster's just going to open up on the remainder of the back line. Blank a little bit scattered out here. They did counter pick on Jeff, but they need to shut down these DPS. No one's really doing much to Erster. He's not exactly getting a lot done himself, but, okay, finally going to have to back off as the pressure kind of comes in. Actually takes a dive. That's a little unfortunate. Blank could capitalize on that, indeed should, with Huss having this Dragon Blade available. Yeah, and absolutely goes for it. Good sound barrier to counter that out, but Gunba using the Transcendence to keep his team very safe on this point while they start to reinforce. Huss getting Michelle is a nice kind of swinging of the tides here. It's going to give them time for Trill to come in. They've got Eat You Up back in the fight as well. They need to shut down DM and Republic both very quickly. It's going to be hard with that Primal Reach running, but that's DM out of the picture, and good closeout on Jeff as well. Trill to kind of keep this one alive for his team. Going to be a lot of progress on the point for Ardeont no matter how this one falls now, and they still need to shut down Republic, and Erster actually, as Trill is forced to retreat back from the fight now. Eat You Up is the only one there doing much work right now, trying to kind of tag team these members of Ardeont with Huss, and that's going to finally be the beginning of a closeout as the pressure comes in from all sides. Ardeont just a little bit too cut off at the very end there, but honestly, fighting to the last and really making Blank work for it.
And still getting to 97%. Let's talk about how that fight actually started, because the stars kind of aligned there for Blank Esports. Erster, after having a pretty good Dragon Blade, just doesn't find the mark on the double jump, falls off the edge of the map. Blank Esports says, okay, this is go time for us. Huss pulls out a Dragon Blade of his own, picks up a couple of kills, not enough kills to get Ardeont off the cap. Finally, Ardeont hold it out to 97%. That's pretty preferable still, and Blank Esports now on the back foot, similar to what we saw in Control Center, going from 0%, they have to win it from here.
As a good pulse bomb to start it off, but Eat You Up needs to stay alive, immediately dies, as does Gunba and Trill. The Dragon Blade from Erster going to absolutely seal the deal on this one. And if they can pick Huss, closing out on Huwu is good news for them. If they can pick Huss as well, then there's going to be no one on Blank to force the overtime.
Huss.
That's the closeout, who was looking to get that overtime. Did actually force it just barely, but no one's going to be able to touch the point after that. Oh, as I say that, Eat You Up did get, I think, like a bit of toenail on there or something, but they're going to be coming into the scattered no matter how you slice it. Unless Huss gets a miracle Dragon Blade, they're probably down and out for the count here. No Transcendence can come from Gunba to keep them alive throughout any further part of this. They've got onto the point now with Huss, but he's just got no targets, gets completely drilled down by DM. That's going to be the 2-0 for Ardeont.
And you might even think he's got too many targets, but you just can't really pick one. There's just no one for Huss to really go on to at the end of that.
He's a kid in a candy store, but the candy is trying to kill you.
But it's like, but you're too short. You're like a toddler and all the candy's on shelves. You can't reach anything. There's a lot of candy, but you can never grab it. So actually think about it for a moment. Ardeont now closes out the game the same way twice in a row, which is essentially they get the fight win at the exact crucial time. And on Control Center, that was as they were sort of finishing that map, just getting a couple staggered kills, forcing Gumber and RQ to come back and bite themselves, getting that unfavorable sound barrier that RQ had to pop just to try and save the game. This time around 97% cap, Huss barely forces that overtime, almost just misses out. Trill doesn't get the jump through the window to actually get back on the point as well. So a couple of misfires from the blank side as they rush back in, but otherwise it is just staggered blank trying to get themselves back on the overtime.
Yeah.
They never have the opportunity to actually group up and take it as a whole team.
Yeah, there's something I kind of want to pick out here that seems to be a common thing, not just with blank here, but indeed everyone who's faced Ardeont so far, and that is sometimes they just seem to get kind of flatly out-fragged. And this is something we've often credited blank for being very good at, but in this situation, I mean, DM was often just getting onto the backline, largely unopposed, picking out Gunber. EDUP wasn't really going toe-to-toe with DM. They weren't really getting the counter trades and everything, and it absolutely showed. Very clean 2-0 for Ardeont, going to set themselves up 1-0 up in the series so far. And we talked about kind of what this was going to mean. I mean, this is potentially blank's strongest game mode in general, and they've already dropped it, not even in a particularly close match. In fact, yesterday AHQ against Ardeont were able to at least force a 99-99 situation on Lijiang Tower. So blank not even having that kind of performance, and now they move it into hybrid. After that comes Assault, which is unequivocally their weakest game mode, which is again going to be Ardeont's pick. So without wanting to call that one too early, blank really need to turn it around on their hybrid pick now.
And the other thing is AHQ actually took Control Center, if I'm not mistaken. A part of that was due to the fact that they were able to kill Ursa and sort of final one. I'm gonna have to jog my memory on that one, but it did seem like you're right about the 99-99. And all things considered, AHQ had a very good run against Ardeont so far in Lijiang Tower, but it did start to fall apart, and I do have that kind of concern for blank as well, because like you said, Lijiang Control, that is where blank are very strong. Now that we move away from that, something that still looms over blank's heads is the thing that's kind of doomed them from the start. They are very vulnerable during those opening skirmishes. They very rarely, oh, I shouldn't say never because they have a couple times, but very rarely are able to take the win on the opening skirmishes. That's why we're seeing these huge leads that Ardeont get. 99-0 on Control Center, 97-0 on Gardens as well. Blank are always fighting from the back foot. That affects them. Let's take a look at the replay now as we get into Control Center.
So this is said opening skirmish. Now the thing that defined this was actually that EDUP was the first pick, but if you look at where Republic dived to, EDUP was way further forward than he had any right to be. Really should have just been behind Huwu. He's not the tracer. He's not looking to dive here. He is in fact looking to kind of counter out the divers and deal with DM coming in on the side. So him going down, blank didn't lose many more members after that. They traded 2 for 1 total, but it gave Ardeont the point. That's all it actually took for Ardeont to get the point. And I guarantee they could have gone 1 for 1 in that situation, but because it was the McCree who died, they lost any ability to deal with DM on the side. Ardeont knew that, and I actually want to touch on something else that happened here, because this was across the board. Ardeont, I feel, were actually quite disciplined to not send DM in. They probably could have, and maybe could have gotten away with it without the McCree there, but they didn't because they knew that blank were just going to have to back off anyway, and they could get the point without having to do any more work. And the reason I give them credit for that is we've often seen them really pile in the pressure on top of situations like that, which is the potentially punishable thing we've been talking about quite a lot. And indeed, AHQ were punishing that a bit last night. This actually felt a lot cleaner out of Ardeont in a lot of ways. And I mean, they're already looking better than most of these other teams. When they're then adding in this extra tidiness, they look really unbeatable.
Well, the thing about Ardeont is, and you could see in that replay, even if you get some trades against Ardeont, they are trading back to you at a minimum rate of 1 for 1. The one time that Ardeont did lose a team fight on Control Center, where blank really fired back, is that punish we're talking about. Ardeont tried to go for the spawn camp again, tried to hold the choke. Blank were positioned well enough, they were just aggressive enough, and they timed their attack just well enough as well to counter-attack right into Ardeont, punish them for overextending a little bit, and then they were able to come back in and get the cap, but they couldn't hold on to the cap, and that's another issue for blank altogether as well. The one thing that really made a statement towards Ardeont is look, you are going to still be punished for these kind of things. And the other thing we noticed is Ardeont were trading ultimates fairly evenly with Blank in that situation, rather than being constantly hit in ultimates like they are against most other teams.
So it's an interesting thing. What it would actually suggest to me is, even though Ardeont won that, they are actually being more tested by Blank than anyone else they've played so far. That was kind of to be expected. I mean, even if you just look at the Season 1 finishing standings, it was 3rd, 2nd, 1st being AHQ, Blank, Flash Wolves. So you expect AHQ to be their toughest challenge yet, then Blank to be harder than that, and then Flash Wolves to finish off tomorrow to be even tougher. So that's not too unsurprising, but they are still overcoming the challenge so far. Next map pick up will be Blank's pick, and they're taking this to Kings Row. Nothing too unexpected, I would say.
Yeah, looking forward to this one, and I'm going to hold my judgment so far as to which team has had the best performance against Ardeont, because so far, at least in my eyes, AHQ had the 99-99 that Blank have not had so far. If Blank can have a good showing on Kings Row, this may be the turnaround point. So, Ardeont, though, look, there are no pushovers on this map. I'm expecting a lot of Doomfist out of Erster in particular. We did see glimpses of that. We also saw glimpses of that Genji. So yesterday, it was 90% Genji, a little bit of Doomfist from Erster. This time around, it's kind of 50-50. But what's he going to do? I don't know. It could be anything. Yeah. And that's kind of the dangerous thing, because no matter what he goes on, it feels like he is just that deadly. Yeah,
that's quite a good point. And I want to touch on part of the reason for that. I don't want to go into too much detail here, because it's kind of hard to pinpoint some of these things without going into like real specifics of particular plays that happen. But in general, the trio of DM, Erster, and Republic is really refined in how they play their aggression out. Like I said, we often see DM seeming to get in on the side unopposed. A lot of that is actually the groundwork being done by Republic, and the credit I want to give to Erster in that is he staggers it by just a little bit. He doesn't go in dead on time with Republic, he goes in that extra moment after. So just when you feel you've maybe weathered the storm, that's when Erster takes an opportunity. If he was in any earlier than that, he would get repelled along with Republic. If he went in any later, he would probably just die. He times his aggression very, very finely.
Absolutely. Sometimes, though, he does still get picked out. So that's the kind of interesting note that Blank have to sort of take advantage of here, because Erster is kind of still known to make these hero plays. In fact, all of Ardeont in general, I would sort of say that their team play style is very much aggressive, is one word to say it. Also very fast as a team. They know their objectives very well, and they time their attacks very quickly. And Erster's definitely at the spare front of that.
Absolutely, and Kings Row, Blank's pick. My assumption would be Blank will defend first.
Seems like that would be Blank's style, always choosing to defend first. One of the few teams that chooses to attack first actually is Machi. I don't know that Ardeont generally choose to attack first either, but
yeah, well, the standard is, of course, choose that defense first. So yes, indeed, Blank on the defense, and we'll have to see what exactly it is Erster opts to play. So far, nothing too unusual out of either of these teams.
Well, the unusual thing is Blank Esports would usually be running the McCree or the Soldier Doomfist in this composition on defense on Kings Row. So they are going for something aggressive. They want to match the attack timings of Ardeont, but let's see who initiates first, because both teams should have fight priority here, which means both teams want to be the ones aggressing.
Yeah, good pressure by Ardeont to already get that first third sorted. It puts the pressure really on Blank to start repelling them, and they opt to go in now, losing Huss and Trill, unfortunately unable to retreat. Now this is what I talk about, DM wrapping around the side, unopposed as he picks Gunber there, and that's going to be a really quick closeout by Ardeont. They knew that Blank had to come to the point, so they abandoned it and drew Blank out, forced them to overextend it, and Blank walked right into the trap.
Well timed by Ardeont as well. You see, they didn't try and overstep themselves. They didn't try and, you know, playing into Blank's strategy. They saw what Blank was trying to do. They said, okay, you're going to dive into us. We're going to peel back for our own team, and we're going to kill your divers. Trill was the first one. Huss was rather the first one that went down. And the rest of them straight afterwards.
There's that aggression we talk about from Ardeont, going very far forward because they didn't want Blank to get that extra contest, which they probably would have got. But actually, Blank totally punished it. Erster overextended and went down. Blank picking up Jeff means they're going to get as good as a contest on that first point. They're going to be able to defend on this arch.
And this is very important, but a pulse bomb could make the difference. Unfortunately, not going to be the case here. So Ardeont losing a few of these ultimates, going to give Blank very important time to be charging their own ultimates, because Blank lost so quickly. the ult economy is actually fairly even.
Great disruption there by Republic to just cause disarray, and it's that disarray that Erster takes advantage of as he picks up a 2K. IADUF goes into retreat as the team's just getting picked apart now. Stalled up the payload a little bit, but honestly, despite the ultimates that were available for Blank before Ardeont had those 3 you see there, they honestly just got no picks and no leeway.
And this is now the Ardeont that you sort of see where they don't have to really use anything. This is how their ult economy is always so healthy. They can actually just get the kills. Erster finds himself a double. No Dragon Blade required. No support required from anyone else. Ardeont just get it done with barely anything used. A very lean push is exactly how Ardeont like to play.
Good pressure actually out of IADUF, really trying to keep DM down on this flank. They're finally coming up to the point where Blank want to dig in their heels and fight, and they press the go button. That's a good Transcendence forced out, but again, Huss just gets picked by Erster. The self-destruct butting Trill as well, already at this big numbers disadvantage, and now all out of ultimates as well as Blank. So that is that ult economy out of Ardeont. Had to pull a lot to make it happen, but this is looking like it should be a cap for them.
Absolutely. Even the little cat and mouse chase there, Edith doesn't have enough health, he doesn't have enough time, doesn't have enough teammates to help him out there, and Blank Esports, they had all the ultimates going for them. 6 ultimates. Huss died before the Transcendence came out. RQT tried to save the day with the sound barrier after Transcendence as well, but just didn't get the kills in their self-destruct shell, cleaning up members, and Ardeont are now doing what they couldn't do after getting cap A, and that's getting these extra kills while they're pushing the car through.
Huss being the first to go down in that fight was part of what made it so devastating as well. I mean, when one DPS just straight out kills their counterpart, it's not just a numerical advantage, it's a positional advantage as well, or indeed a compositional advantage. And now Ardeont just continuing that momentum forward as they already look to pressure out Huss again, and Erster gets the kill credit with that dash. It was mostly Republic's pressure, but that's how this team operates. Republic puts down the pressure so that DM and Erster can go off, and speaking of go off, DMEX2 takes him down by himself. Animo actually opting to not use the sound barrier in there. They're feeling like they're getting the kills anyway, but I feel like he could have actually preserved his own life. Now actually Erster in a bit of trouble, does go down for that. DM reinforced it with his team now, but Blank looking to try and stall this one out. They're actually really making Ardeont fight for this one now, because Ardeont, I feel, we're trying a bit too hard to preserve some of those ultimates, and getting Republic down as well means Ardeont do actually have to back off a little bit more earnestly and regroup.
Ardeont are going to commit now, though. They backed up and they managed to get all their members together again. Waited to see what ultimates Blank Esports were going to use. Blank Esports were quite lean themselves, but now this is going to be the go button. Finally, we see Huss's Dragon Blade after like 2 points.
Finally closes it out on Jeff, but that's a 1-for-1 trade with Erster, and then Michelle picking Gunber as well. Erster doesn't really find too much with his own Dragon Blade, but finding Trill is enough. Actually closes out on Hugu as well with the dash. And that was, like I said, a great bait. Ardeont kind of went in with this Transcendence and then started coming back before Republic was there. He was almost there, and they went, Blank went, here's a window, went in with 2 ultimates, and Ardeont just kited them back and back and back and back and back until suddenly Huss could get only 1 kill and nothing else. And the aggression now continues from Ardeont, who are now on the cusp of having more of an ultimate advantage.
Oh, QT shut down.
Pick up already. Counter trade though for Republic. Ardeont do still have to respect this as they lose Jeff, but they're still getting counter trades of their own, and actually no one's really touching DM on the side here.
This is the start. This is the place where Blank should be able to hold on. They got the superior ult economy after having multiple skirmishes with Ardeont. They have the superior spawns here as well. RQC finally gets the sound barrier after respawning, and for Ardeont, this should be where you may look to back off because you don't have enough firepower. Blank, they are using ultimates. Just wait for the full reset, build your ultimates one more time, and you should be able to get the full pusher because the cart is actually very close to dangerous mode still for Blank.
Yeah, and they're going to be coming up on this sound barrier self-destruct and Primal Rage. Erster already going in for that hero play we talked about, and it pays off as he picks Huss and just won't die. Look at how low he's getting and constantly getting topped off. All that happened there at the end for Blank was a single kill on the Pulse Bomb. They could have waited for those extra ultimates, but Erster went, I might as well see if I can just make this happen now with the one that we have, and he totally did.
And actually something interesting happened in the middle of Camp 3 there, where for one of the few times where I expected Ardeont to seriously commit into a fight, they didn't. That was when Huss Dragon Bladed with sound barrier from RQT as well, and that was when Blank was very heavily trying to defend that, but actually I felt Ardeont still had the edge up. They were still saving ultimates. They could have traded ultimates back. They had the correct ultimates to do so, but they were very reserved in a moment where I felt like a traditional Ardeont would have pulled the trigger and actually gone for it. Still ended up working out for them because they went for the reset, decided to come back in, and Ardeont actually, or rather Blank, did a very good job of completely resetting the ult economy on both sides, and that actually favors the defense in that scenario because you have the superior spawns.
Yeah, unfortunately, that defense favor was not quite enough for them to truly draw that line in the sand and hold out altogether. The cap did go through in the end. But I kind of want to touch on something you said there, and it was that quite restrained play out of Ardeont, because it's just not something we've seen.
For a brief moment.
Yeah,
One brief moment.
It's not something we've seen so far in this tournament, except for just now, and also there was that fight on Lijiang Tower that I picked out as well. It was similarly restrained on Control Center. So it does seem that this is a capability Ardeont do have, and that was one of the questions we had about this team for a while. Having seen a lot of their aggression, we went, okay, but what happens when they've got a team that can punish that? Can they play restrained? So far, the answer has been yes, they can.
And it is the Ardeont that we sort of ask as well, do they play, or rather, how do they play to their opponent's skill level? So far, we've seen them take on teams lower than Blank in the standings, and they play far more aggressively, they play with less respect, taking on Blank. Now, you do see a bit more patience, specifically in this opening skirmish. They waited for Blank to dive them first, they were very patient with that, and they found the picks where they needed them.
Huss going to be out the gate on the Genji again. Really was not having much impact on the defense as that Genji, so let's see how the offense goes.
The first skirmish, always very interesting from Blank's perspective. Often not favored, but they need to find preferable engage for themselves.
Look at
But already
that.
looking like their team is somewhat split.
That's a good pick on Republic, but they were kind of getting pincered in there and now just kind of had to pull back to deal with said pincer, but they are dealing with it. They're actually punishing Ardeont for separating themselves. Ardeont didn't quite close in on Blank cleanly enough, now losing Animo as well, and that should be Blank sitting up on the point. Rest of Ardeont has retreated successfully, and Ursa is out on the Doomfist, so they should be able to come in for a final contest on this first point, but Blank, good open.
I certainly expect them to. Ardeont, definitely a team that doesn't like to give up Cap A lightly.
There
It's
they
going to
go.
be that contestant we're talking about.
Republic's already low though, needs to really work hard to preserve his life and goes down. Good discipline by Blank as well to keep Trill and Gunba both alive. Now the cap goes through and they look to get a little bit more aggressive. They lose Gunba and eat you up, but Ardeont can't do much with that. They're going to have to retreat anyway.
There's still a good positioning from Ardeont in the center.
Oh, Huss.
Well, DM aside, the rest of Ardeont are certain that they can defend this bookshop. For Blank, though, functionally, this is the same attack that Ardeont did in terms of time, in terms of objective. They're getting the cart moving roughly around the same time. They have to get a very similar beat if Blank want to get this in a similar time.
That's a great punish. Erster was actually not regrouped with his team. He was actually looking for a pick very greedily, and that is exactly the kind of punish we've been saying Blank need.
Still, they need to be able to convert this onto something, so look for Edith to get a play
Ooh,
onto the
Eden.
pulse bomber straight into a matrix. Like Esports, they need the options here. The rest of the ultimates do come up, so they're still going to find 5, and they should be pushing now. There it is.
Yeah, that's a nano boost out straight onto the Winston, but that's an early pick onto Jeff, and just getting back into the game here. Give us one quick moment. The action is still underway, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and the Huss looked like he had some really good targets there as well from the Dragon Blade perspective, straight onto Jeff on the side. And Blank had good momentum behind them, so we talk about the fact, you know, are Blank going to be able to go and play Ardeont's play? So, mind you, Blank are going for the Tracer Genji. They need to have these very, very favorable engages. I want to talk about their first cap a little bit, just while we have the time. And I kind of talk about teams being split there. Ardeont were split because they committed 3 members quite deep in the cinema section behind Blank, trying to get the pincer play. And the pincer play can work, but when it doesn't work, what it does mean is half of your team cannot assist the other half of the team, and Blank are the team that are actually grouped together, and they win that.
And now, by the way, the place we were also seeing that last night, actually, we saw it in the Ardeont AHQ matchup, but also in the Blank Flash Wolves matchup. Both teams on Assault did this. And it was actually more prevalent in the Flash Wolves Blank matchup, where Blank, especially on the defense, would try and set up a kind of pincer play, have someone flanked around, and it was constantly getting punished. So actually, Blank's own ability to punish Ardeont for doing that is a very strong sign there. They are at least aware of how to play around that. And indeed, that awareness may come from their own being outplayed while trying to pull off the same strategy. So
Yeah.
again, these are the potentially punishable things we've seen Ardeont doing. It is a good sign that Blank can punish them, but Ardeont are also showing their restrained side, and that's making this a very tough match for Blank.
And it is refreshing to see Blank take charge in those opening skirmishes because they have been weaker in those. So the fact that they can get the opening pick, Ardeont, as predicted, do get the counter trades. Ardeont can never let you get the kills without counter trading on their own side. So Gumba goes down as well, but that pincer strategy just didn't really work out for them. Blank were the ones that were consolidated together. They're able to pressure Ardeont out-cap that one through. Ardeont actually fall back in a reserve manner, not losing too many members. That allows them to come back in for a final contest. But still, Republic going down early, and something you mentioned is, where's the pressure on Republic? So it's good that Blank have also adapted to that, pushing Republic out, ensuring that cap, and then even finding Erster on the retreat.
Yeah, they were sort of doing it on Lijiang Tower, but Republic was still getting enough time for DM and Erster to both go off that it wasn't quite enough. But Blank seemed to have just pushed it up that extra notch, and they're dealing with him quickly enough. And we don't quite know the exact nature of what has gone on, by the way, but it did seem actually that the game was pushed back into the lobby, which may mean that the map itself needs to be reset. We will be getting a bit of confirmation on that before long, so do just hold tight, but it doesn't look like there are any major technical issues, so it should only be a short delay from here on. And I kind of want to touch on something interesting there. If it does come to being a reset, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, right, if you're in Blank's shoes, given that they are currently the ones 0-1 down in the series that are looking to win this. It's a blessing because they will get another shot at the defense. It's a curse because actually their offense was on a roll. They had a huge ult advantage, and they were keeping a lot of momentum by punishing overextension out of Ardeont. They were actually looking on track to get a pretty fast Streets phase and really keep pace with Ardeont's own time, which would have probably steered them well into time bank.
And it actually did look like a good Streets phase because they had the 5 ultimates. Despite Eat-Up tossing the pulse bomb directly into a defense matrix, they were definitely hit into economy, and that's something that happens quite rarely against a team like Ardeont. So they were about to pressure Ardeont backwards. I would have liked to have seen how Ardeont would have responded. I expect them to probably have committed ultimates as well. One thing that Ardeont do quite well is, even if they are behind on ult economy, because of their playstyle and nature of the fact that they can get a lot done with very few ults, which is how their attack looks so good, I did also expect them to have a good showing on the defense as well. But losing Erster early and then directly going to the play from Huss, it did look very good for Blank.
Yeah, it really did. And I mean, like I said, I kind of want to just go back to it because it was an overextension by Erster that caused that. He was way too far forward, was looking for a pick onto potentially Huss up in that kind of top side of the hotel, or alternatively, one of the supports who was maybe looking for a vantage point, but I was well enough read by Blank actually to recognize that that is a setup play that Ardeont go for to try and get one of those picks using the Doomfist, who is generally mobile enough to get back out. So I feel like there's also a kind of meta thing going on here where it does actually feel like Blank have really done their research on what it is Ardeont are doing when they're playing aggressively, which I think is what's cueing the more restrained play out of Ardeont so far.
And I think Blank expecting and foreseeing the plays that Ardeont want to make, such as the fact that Ardeont 100% going to be going for that late play to try and stall out cap to try and save what's left of the first cap. That's something that Ardeont have done so far every single time. So for Blank reading this play coming up from Ardeont, also I want to comment on DM as well. We talk about how Erster got caught out early on the retreat. DM was actually still harassing around the clock tower section after the cap went over, and so he was way out of position as well.
Just by the way, you saw on your moment, saw on your screens there for a moment, it was all smiles in the Blank camp as they were having a bit of a chat with Doctor and Serenity. Certainly if the pressure of playing against the current #1 team in the tournament and being 0-1 down in that series, if that pressure is there, they're certainly not showing it. And there is a lot of mental resilience in this team. And I also want to touch on another aspect of that, and that is that they do have these 2 newer players. Ardeont themselves did bring on new players between now and the promotion relegation tournament in the form of dropping Dayfly and Thorncut, and I believe I'm trying to remember the names.
They have Michelle, Jeff, Smurf, and Republic.
I think wasn't Republic just a rename?
Republic is not. Republic is a brand new player, directly a ranked player. So he's
been a pretty good pickup in that case. But
he's in many regards even newer than players like Hu and Huss, who have had
some tournament experience,
with various tournament and international experience at that. Republic directly off the matchmaking server. I mean, finding a guy like this is definitely like a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then again, it's a Korean server, so there's a lot of needles in that haystack.
A lot of needles.
Don't jump in.
It's actually predominantly a needle stack. Like every so often you'll
You're just looking for a sharper and sharper needle.
Yeah, every so often you'll accidentally pull out, hey, like, what's this doing here? But actually, that was exactly what I was going to talk about. A lot of mental resilience shown on the side of Blank, and also recovering from their match yesterday against Flash Wolves, which was a 3-1 result in favor of Flash Wolves. At which point, what I'm trying to say is, it was a match during which Hubu and Huss both made some quite costly mistakes. Granted, other members of the team do as well, so it's good to see that they have a similar level of mental resilience, given that they are joining this the rest of this team that has played together for quite a long time. And you touched on it right there. The reason for that is they actually themselves have a good amount of tournament experience, and it's really showing. It's something that's going to put them in good stead throughout this tournament. Unfortunately, you have to be a little bit better than just being good at the mental game. You do also have to win the game of Overwatch if you want that to reflect in the standings.
And it does still seem like you want to take a look. You want to take a look at the 2 stages of Lijiang that we've had, the 1 half of Kings Row that we have had so far. Blank generally look like they have to work harder for those wins. They have to work harder for every single pick because Ardeont, they always swing back. They feel like counter punches in this scenario because if you swing at Ardeont, they swing back but a little bit harder.
And I believe we are going to be resetting Kings Row. I don't believe it will have preserved the clock time remaining for Ardeont either, so it is going to be a full reset. Not sure exactly what went on there or what caused that issue, but it has been resolved. Doesn't look like it's going to be happening again, and we are going to be starting from the top. So I did actually mention this before. This is potentially a blessing and a curse for Blank, and if you are Blank right now, sitting at your screen having to go through this again, you have to take the blessing side of that, and that is they are going to get another shot at this defense to try and stall up Ardeont and hold out for a little bit longer than they did last time around. And
they need a good, like you sort of said, they needed to have a much better hold because that was Ardeont pushing through Cap A and B in the streets phase very quickly. Blank started to find their feet in C. That's the default place where every team will find their feet. If you get a good hold on A and B, you're naturally going to have the ability on C to then get an even better hold and then force a full cap, or rather force a full hold where the other team does not cap at all. So the first 2 caps, in my opinion, very important here.
And is, of course, going to be Blank on that defense first. Naturally, just same as it was before. Nothing has changed.
I think that is also a rule, I believe. If it is a full reset,
is indeed.
You're going to have to play the exact same thing. So
it
absolutely to start with.
Is, yeah. And good pressure onto Huss, but no early pick coming through just yet. This is a good kind of wraparound play by Blank, but Trill gets punished for it. Now they're kind of in retreat. Not going to go the same way they did last time, where they kind of pulled back and then went in. DM is also kind of able to get around the side, does not get punished for it either, and able to recall back out of there. Now Huss going to go down. And in similar fashion, looks like Ardeont are going to get a quick cap on point A.
And short of one good sleep from Gumba, it is essentially the exact same story that we've seen from Ardeont. Not rewriting history from the Blank side just yet, but where we may see history rewritten a little bit, can Ardeont get an even quicker cap? We talk about the fact that Blank held them up on C. Does Ardeont actually just blow them out on C as well?
Yeah, this is not quite as aggressive on the streets phase this time around from
just
Ardeont.
Well adapted.
Yeah, well adapted, exactly. They're, again, just showing that extra level of restraint. But there is still the opportunity for Blank to get a hold around the bookstore.
So Blank needed to be able to take the fight quite quickly here before the majority of
the start of it.
come back on. You're taking out the one guy with an ultimate right now is definitely a good start, like you said.
Ursta's in full retreat, and they follow up on Republic. Good work there by EU up, and actually, they have got that kind of bookstore hold. They're not going to like fully hold just yet. The card is still underway, but they've stalled up Ardeont that little extra bit, so already looking a little healthier on that streets phase. Now let's see if they can execute on a second fight with some ultimates coming up.
And Ardeont actually managed to back out quite smoothly there as well. They only lost 2 members. Now they're going to get all 6 lights up pretty soon. Like Esports,
that's a pulse
timing
bomb.
could be very tough here.
Big pulse bomb comes out from DM as well to answer Gunba. Huss gets 1 back on Republic, but he needs to get a lot more because Ursta goes off and actually picks up Huss in that as well. So they used the few ultimates they did have available there. Hubu holding on to the self-destruct. Did draw a couple out of Ardeont, at least in the form of the Sound Barrier, Dragon Blade, and Pulse Bomb, but Blank not quite getting the second fight hold.
And you look at the timing there. The people died on 95, 96, 98% ultimates, and now the Blank ultimates are coming online. Huss was the only one that used. Probably shouldn't have used because he tried to make a hero play, the kind of hero play that Ursta usually kind of makes, but Ursta comes out on top of those, and Huss has been punished in the past. That timing from Ardeont was so critical, they just took out Blank before any ultimates from Blank were available.
All right, well now we have to see Blank's own defense ahead of point B. That's an early transcendence out of Jeff, matched by Gun, but good self-destruct to catch Ursta is an advantage they need numerically. Have some ultimates still in the pocket, but starting to look lean now as the Sound Barrier runs out. They need to close out on Republic, who can just Primal Rage. There it goes, but they pick up up DM. So now there's only so much Republic can do. Ursa still just rejoining the team right now, and Michelle getting pressured out, so Huss takes the Q, goes for the back line, looking for Jeff, gets the follow-up, and that is a very nice hold from Blank, very cleanly executed.
And this is another situation where we see Ardeont quite split. Why was Animo so far ahead of the rest of his team?
Yeah.
What was DM doing as well? I mean, DM tried to get the picks. That's probably more acceptable for a Tracer, but Animo had no business being all the way into Cap C already when his team is still pushing the cart.
Good stagger, by the way, by Eat You Up. They let Michelle think that he was going to get away with his life, so much better street space so far on the defense, given that they have run down the clock a significant amount, but they have yet to complete a whole Blank.
Absolutely, because Ardeont they weren't this stopped up on the street space the first time we saw them attacking, and now actually resetting the ultimate economy completely as well. Something Blank did against Ardeont the last time we saw them on Kings Row. Now Blank Esports actually being hit in ultimates. This is where they can actually get a really good hold, and it's before we even get to see.
Very nicely set up around this payload as well. DM is trying to get around the backside, actually gets away with it, but they trade back on Jeff. DM finds RQT as well though, and Huss trades Animo. Trill opens up the house now as they close out on Michelle. DM Eastern Republic can still get a ton of work done, but there's still a lot of pressure that can come out of Blank. Republic taking Huss, but the self-destruct from Huwu actually does get channeled out. Ursa in indeed, but they had to back off for a moment to avoid the self-destruct. Blank also have the respawn favor, having picked Republic in there. Now Ursa having to back off. They burned down the clock, if nothing else, but that is significant. That was a minute wasted for Ardeont.
And Blank Esports now, they fired all their guns. Gumba's got one coming back in for Ardeont. This is now the timing for them. Ultimates are going to come online for Ardeont quicker than they are going to be for Blank Esports. So Blank going to be the ones on the back foot here. They need to find the opening once again. Gumba immediately transcended it.
Yeah, sound barrier out from Animo as well, but RQT is going to be able to match it in a second. As the self-destruct from Michelle, so they give it some space. Oh, but Huss getting caught in it is going to hurt their ability to do the big damage, and DM able to retreat to Jeff's Transcendence as they start to close out on the rest of Blank. Now looking to get RQT in the chaos. A lot of time lost for Ardeont, but they are still going to be able to close out this fight convincingly, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them move ahead and try and get some stagger kills. Indeed, they are.
Absolutely. Good target selection from Ardeont as well. You see they didn't overcommit onto the tanks. They got the healers first, got the DPS first. Huwu and Trill died last. They can't do anything with the support of the rest of the team. Now Ardeont going to push on through, but I think they're going to get a worse time than they did the first time we saw them on this map.
Yeah, naturally. I believe they were close to about 3 minutes last time around, so already below that, and Blank getting some ultimates online here. There is still, of course, the opportunity as well that they are able to get a full hold out, but Huss again getting picked by Ursa. Not a great start for Blank in this fight, and a stick onto Gunba as well.
This is definitely momentum that Ardeont can work with, and Ursa still have a Dragon Blade as well. That's going to be very important. You can get the timing right over here. Doesn't need to use it in this position. Just clear the rest of Blank Esports. When they go for the full wave of respawns, that's when you want a Dragon Blade. If you get a good Dragon Blade, you finish the game.
Trill altered in there as well, by the way, and that was after Gunba had already been picked, as well as Huss, so didn't really get much for it. Slightly undisciplined out of Blank, and now they're a little behind in the ult economy.
And the real troublesome thing here is they don't have the support ultimates. RQT and Gumba are still somewhat far away. Ursa, though, he's not going to wait for this.
And RQT now very far away as he instantly goes down to Ursa, as does Gunba. Eat You Up, only one trade back. Huwu tries to get something, but Michelle gets more with the mech, and Huwu loses his life. Cart indeed, Eat You Up, the only one with the ability to contest, and was not able to do so. 1 minute 47 for Ardeont. Still plenty of time, and a largely uncontested push, but we do have to say Blank's performance this time around on that street space was much stronger than before.
And that could just make the difference, because we look at A, that was very much the same thing as we saw last time. C was a little bit better for Ardeont. In fact, I'm going to say much better for Ardeont because they weren't stopped up like they were the first time around. But B, street space. This is where everything changed for the Ardeont side, and everything's changed in the positive way for the Blank side. Blank were very much ahead in many of those moments, and they got to credit themselves for that. And Blank Esports, or rather for Ardeont, have to look at that and find out what went wrong.
Yeah, it was a really interesting situation as well before that cap on point B, because it honestly was a lot of even fights, but because of the closer respawn, Blank just bought a ton of time in that small area. Now on their own offense, have to see if they can similarly execute. Last time around, they got a nice quick cap on point A. which is exactly what Ardeont have now been able to do to them twice. They will need a repeat performance and had a lot of momentum in the streets phase.
The other thing I want to praise here from the Ardeont side is the continued ability to consistently plan out and execute how they want to finish a map. We saw that on Lijiang Tower. Exactly what sort of scenario do they want to lay out to then put Blank on the back foot for them to then finish the game. We see that again on Kings Road right at the end there. Erster holding Dragon Blade, making sure you get a certain kill order happening as well, finding out exactly how many fights you have to play left, one more additional fight where Blank get a full wave of respawns, and you have enough tools left in the toolbox to complete the map in the case of Ardeont.
There's just not enough room up there for both of them.
I'm surprised there's room enough for one person. It's a very shiny, bold head, and I'd slip on that.
Well, that's just that. I mean, that's precision Korean engineering is what allows Michelle to stand up there on that mecha. Those metal feet.
And Michelle's also a Korean player, so I mean that's double.
Double the precision, double the Korean, double the precision.
Yep.
And well, actually, it's 6 times the Korean in terms of the Ardeont lineup. Now,
Six times the Korean precision.
Yeah. Blank on the offense are going to have to overcome all 6 of those Koreans in that attack. And they're actually 5 Aussies and a Kiwi, so they don't get that sort of single nationality bonus, but Trill already going
already
down.
showing.
Yeah, already showing. Trying to get the trade kill on Republic, but they lose Eat You Up, and just, I mean, this is like 1v1s going on here.
And we talk about adaptation, and this is now Ardeont once again, very early stages on in this map, where we see Ardeont hold back. They're not going to make that pincer play again. They're not going to overcommit half their members. Find out what Blank are doing. Find the picks where necessary. Do not overcommit on any of those picks, and still keep that lead going, which is exactly how they're playing.
And already Erster very close to a Dragon Blade. Need to kind of find their way in. Ardeont going to move through the hotel here, look for the wraparound play, trying to get onto Gunber, and the troops kind of fall back to try and save him, but fail a little bit at that. Now need to get some counter trades instead, but they lose RQT, and Huss getting caught out in the reposition. Eat You Up? No way.
2 HP.
Survive. Nearly went down in a 1v1 to Jeff, but gets killed on the retreat there, and Ardeont are looking to have a much, much stronger hold than the first time around.
And this is exactly the kind of hold that Ardeont wanted the first time around, but unfortunately for them, Blank Esports outplayed them in the opening skirmish. But this is now the Blank opening skirmish that's a little bit more predictable. Ardeont flexing their muscles very early on, and the person who flexes the most
That's
is definitely
Nanoblade. Yeah, straight onto Gunber to get that one down. He's getting pressured, but honestly, if Trill can't deal with him, if Trill is going down to that Dragon Blade and the rest of the follow-up isn't there, then they're just never going to be able to shut down Erster in those situations. Blank finally have a window with ultimates up now, though.
And that's exactly how they climb back into this game, is out-rotating Ardeont here, but they're out-rotating at the cost of objective time. That's just the trade that they're going to have to make if they actually want to cap at all, and they're going to need a lot of ultimates. Both the support ultimates are going to be crucial here as well, because both DPS ultimates are actually down on Ardeont's side. Ardeont don't have a lot of options here. They just have to frag, but we also know they can do that.
Eat You Up around the backside, looking for that pulse bomb. Throws it out and is able to get out as well, but they're going to need to commit some more ultimates, but now Ardeont have their own to commit, and Huss is low, getting nothing with the Dragon Blade. They've really not found much so far because Michelle zoned them with that self-destruct, and Huss gets picked off on the back end of that. Now Eat You Up pressured out. The DPS is not getting free reign. They do take out Erster, but they need to convert a lot more. DM safely retreats, self-destruct from Huvu to create some space, but it's not space they can do anything with. All they've already done is alleviated some pressure, and now the pressure is back on. Huss back into the fight though with the Doomfist. They're looking to get even trades and reinforce quickly. They need to get a lot of mileage out of this pick, and that's mileage, my friend, as they close out on Animo and Jeff as well. Finally, it looks like Blank are going to be able to cap point A.
And this is the answer that Huss needed. This is the answer that Blank Esports needed, because on every other attack, despite being well ahead in ultimates, Huss Dragon Blades couldn't find anything. The complete opposite of what happens when Erster Dragon Blades. He finds DM straight away. This time, DM down again once again.
This is a big commit out of Ardeont, and it totally pays off as they find a couple of the backliners, but good counter trades. Huss looking already a lot more impactful on the Doomfist. Does go down, but Ardeont don't really have much to go off as Republic gets picked. DM is only just rejoining here, and Michelle's already being pressured out. DM could go in to try and burn down the clock, but honestly, he'll lose his life for it. So they do burn down more clock. That is not to be trifled with, but they gave Blank a ton of ult charge, and they still get their cap.
And that was a predictable move by Ardeont that once again Blank see, but I have to go back to that original fight because Blank were on the verge of losing that one. They heavily committed in ultimates, couldn't find any kills. They won that from Huss respawning as a Doomfist and finding 2 kills off the back with the rocket punch. That was their ticket back into this game. Without that, we could have been looking at the face of a first cap hold.
And in a way, kind of taking advantage of the chaos as well. It's quite hard when you're mid-fight. You're expecting the respawn, but suddenly it's like, oh, there's a Doomfist out, guys. We've got to play around a Doomfist. It's hard to do that in the moment, so good use of that space by Blank. And speaking of the Doomfist, look at how much shield Huss is being able to bank up as he goes aggressive. Now with the Meteor Strike to scatter the back line, they do lose hit you up in gun, but Huss needs to do a lot more, and he is doing more as he picks up DM. Now needs to find Erster before he can Dragon Blade. Self-destruct gets blocked out by a nice shield from Trill. They're really making Blank fight for every inch of this cart movement, but Blank are absolutely fighting. They're going toe-to-toe, but now Erster with the Dragon Blade can start to close it out. Not unless Huwu kills him. Michelle does trade off on Huss, but this is progress now for Blank as Ardeont have to back up. Again, they run down a lot of Blank's clock, but Blank have this underway.
And we are seeing a lot more preferable trades now from Blank because Huss is getting the correct targets. He's getting that rocket punch kills onto guys like DM. This is insanely shutting down Ardeont because they need DM to stay alive in all of these
Good
games
pressure
to really push pressure out Blank Esports.
Yeah, speaking of pressure, like I said, good pressure out of Blank. Actually, Republic low, and they're really going hard on the backline is the Transcendence to keep them alive while they do so. And this is exactly what Ardeont normally do to other teams. This is Blank barreling now towards point B to get the cap. Ardeont should be able to contest it one final time, but it only will be one last time.
And I don't even know if they really should here because they are behind now. Maybe it's a better option to actually concede this. If they don't hold this, they're going to be feeding a lot more ultimates still into the Blank Esports play call.
Self-destruct finds nothing from Michelle, and DM gets picked off on the side by Huss. Michelle will remech. There's actually no defensive ultimates here for Blank. Huss needs to get a lot done on this backline, but this barrier, sound barrier is making it hard as Gunba going down to Republic. They're trying to get the pressure that they need. Trill going deep onto the backline. Put to sleep though, yeah, fantastic as RQT gets picked off just as the sound barrier came into play. Huss does just barely kill Erster, but he's got no supports to retreat to, and it's just gonna have to walk all the way away from the fight. Blank are probably just gonna have to fall back and go again.
I know Huss has been shut down many a time in multiple different matches, multiple different maps, but right now he's the shining star for this team. He's the one player that's seriously finding these picks in situations where maybe he shouldn't. He's the guy really pulling Blank ahead and keeping Blank in this game, and that's important because Blank have not enough time to actually get this cap on done if they actually want to cap at all.
They are very lean on ultimates as well. Erster could just close it right here, right now with one good Dragon Blade. Had the Nano Boost to pair up with it as well, and you can already see him looking for that. They're going to need to shut him down very quickly, and there goes the ultimates out straight onto Gunba. Gunba trying to deal with it. Yeah, oh, but he's going to go down for it. It looks like no, he kills Trill. Finally dies in the self-destruct. Blank have at least weathered that storm, and there are no more ultimates for Ardeont, but they need to get a lot of work done. Huss was asleep in that, just barely able to pull out for a moment, but gets trained down by DM, and it's looking like they are going to be rebuffed here. Just cannot get the kills they need, and the respawns do favor Ardeont with the cart in this position. Huwu demeched and down in the pilot form, eat you up the last man on the cart, and is not going to be able to cap point B. Ardeont now 2-0 up in the series.
You got to feel good about that if you're Ardeont. On the Blank side, maybe not so much. A lot of questions regarding what would have happened had we gone back to the other game. I want to say that that's kind of irrelevant now because Blank actually had a better defense, so you don't really have that much to complain about. You want to talk about A? Blank's A was much worse. That was probably what really led to Ardeont making the full hold, but you got to compliment the fact that Ardeont, once again, they find the win condition right at the end. How do we actually win this? How do we pull on through? We are going to go for that final last-ditch defense. Animo Sound Barrier came up just at the right time, and because Blank were already heading towards the overtime, the cart was so pushed up. Favorable respawns, like you mentioned, for Ardeont, and that's how they win.
Yeah, and Blank really needed to go all out to shut down Erster right at the end there, and just weren't quite able to do it. Between Gunba and Trill, they felt that they could, but honestly, the fact that he got as low as like 11 HP before finally killing Trill, to me actually said there's an amount of tunnel vision on the side of Blank to send in both of those members and just kind of keep committing, even though it's about to go pear-shaped for you. I mean, when you've got that kill in your sights, you know, you get the dollar bills in your eyes, you can understand continuing the commitment, but actually, if Blank really wanted to commit that hard to killing him, they really needed to commit hard to killing him. Actually, probably should have committed a third member, or indeed taken the opportunity to draw out Erster. He went extremely deep for Gunba, so there are still very abusable things in Ardeont's play that teams could be taking advantage of. Sometimes Blank were taking advantage of them, and other times they weren't. And it was in those times that they weren't that the clock was getting run down, and Blank were often losing fights.
And on the flip side, I want to say that Ardeont do know where the limits are, because we are seeing them adapt now. We are seeing them say, okay, we're going to pull back a little bit here because we're testing our limits. Last time was too far. This time is now going to be exactly how far we can go. For a guy like Erster, getting 2 kills and dying, that's actually worth it because it's
Perfectly
a 2-for-1
fine.
trade. It actually works so far in Ardeont's favor, despite the fact, look, they even have the respawn advantage. So him dying, even if it was 1-for-1, I would say that would be worth it for Ardeont, just because the respawns favor them.
Exactly. Going to be taking a look at some replays here now. And this was earlier on Ardeont's offense. This is where the payload makes it over the line. And honestly, you just see how much disarray there is on the side of Blank. They're not really particularly grouped up. DM had kind of been camped out the side of the spawn here. And in so being sat there, had avoided who was very recent self-destruct just before that, had the pulse bomb as well. So that's the side that generally the supports will come out from. When you've got the Zenyatta, super vulnerable to that Tracer, even with RQT there as well, because there's that pulse bomb, that could just take out two of them. So they had to be very careful in how they got out of that area. But Trill was already way out in the middle of the fight, and they were just completely split up, never had an opportunity to regroup, and Ardeont made sure to keep the door open for themselves so they could just kind of roll the payload into the middle.
And understanding your limits as well, very important, because I want to talk about the fight that preceded the one that we saw in the replay, because every good fight, there's something that you do to set that one up. Let's take a look at the next replay, actually, before we even get into that. This is going to be in Blank's attack instead, and unlike the first time we saw Blank attack, this is now much more difficult.
This is actually Ardeont's attack. Apologies there, yeah. And I think this is... Every single time they attack, it was just super, super quick. And Trill going down instantly, it's not even that Blank are mispositioned or anything. They just kind of didn't do anything. They were sort of making a move, but they were actually waiting for Ardeont to make a move. And ultimately, the lack of proactivity there is what costed them. They didn't try and sit back and draw Ardeont forward. They didn't try and commit hard onto Ardeont themselves. They just kind of waited and didn't really commit to either. And actually, that's more abusable from the perspective of Ardeont than if Blank had gone all in on either of those other two options and completely got smashed.
And, you know, Ardeont as well, just good target selection. They knew where they needed to go. They handled that opening skirmish very well. It's something that we expect out of Ardeont. The one time they had a hiccup, like we mentioned, adapted. They adapted and found out what was going wrong there. They knew where their limits were. They didn't try and overpush themselves, didn't try to overcommit. They went as far as they knew was safe, but still get the maximum results anyway. That's efficiency.
Now that's efficiency, Civ fans will know. But there's something else that's kind of happening tonight that I want to touch on here as we move eventually. Actually, we've got to have a bit of a replay before that. And this is going to be the fight before that you were actually talking about. This is before the final fight for Ardeont. And this is that kind of pressure we're talking about. Erster was constantly finding Huss on this Genji here.
So let's actually look at how Ardeont are going to reserve their ultimates. They know they've actually won this fight, despite the kill feed being rather even. They managed to find the correct targets again, either really going after the healers first here. No one's going to use any further ultimates. You're about to get Animo Sound Barrier back online. Ursa's still holding onto this Dragon Blade. They know exactly which tools they need to finish this map out. Blank are now sitting in a position where they've got no more support ultimates. They don't really have that many win conditions left. And Animo and the rest of his team, they do, and they know how to use them.
And you saw something else happen there with Blank as well. They often end up in these situations where they actually just can't retreat, even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They were already well behind in the fight. Then RQT got picked off because he was still kind of around the payload, who kind of wasn't. And then he sort of went in on the payload, couldn't really retreat at that point either, not without the speed boost from the Lucio. And then who was on the payload, so Eat You Up goes, oh, I should go in there as well then. It's silly for him to just go in for no reason. But actually, it's kind of a, it's a bit of a trap. That's kind of a fallacy, right? Because Eat You Up goes in, Who gets teammated, then he dies straight away, and suddenly Eat You Up's alone on the point, and then everyone is just staggered.
Let's take a look at the next replay now into Streets phase. So it's going to be Blank in the final moments. 3 seconds remaining. And look at the ultimate still available for Ardeont. The only final ability there was the sound barrier coming out. And that's the double kill they're talking about from Ursa. And actually only got caught out by Uhu. So despite everyone going on top of Ursa, the thing that actually killed him was none of those players and was a self-destruct from the other side of the map.
Yeah, and the only reason it caught him is because having picked up those 2 kills, Ursa was pulling back to his team to rejoin the rest of the fight. And that's honestly all that came down to. And by the way, there was a small little micro play I want to touch on in there as well. Very cleverly done by Michelle. For the initial few seconds that Erster was diving onto Gunba, he followed him in and had the defense matrix up. They respected the Zenyatta right click and the fact that it could have actually one-shotted Erster. That would have been 2 ultimates committed onto one guy. who then suddenly gets taken down by the Zenyatta. So smart moves by Michelle, because did that and then instantly left him, knowing that Erster could actually handle both the Zenyatta and the Winston now that the threat of the insta-kill was eliminated. That was very, very nice.
And actually, because, you know, in terms of priority, he has to get back to his own team, protect the other members. Erster's now fine. Even if he dies, it's a 2-for-1 trade. That favors Ardeont. Everything's still fine at the end of the day. You still have to question, would he have died without the self-destruct? Maybe, maybe not. In fact, I don't know if there were any other members there. It's very likely he would have reset, grabbed the health pack, rejoined the fight. That's how deadly this team is, that you need to throw very specific things. You know, you can almost, it's like 2.5 members had to commit onto Erster to actually kill him.
Exactly, the half being the mech that exploded. But you're completely right there. I wanted to touch on, like I said, the kind of meta thing that's going on in this matchup, because honestly, that's the first time I've seen Michelle go in for that sort of play when Erster dives in. Often he just sort of goes in and it still works, right? It still totally pays off. But Ardeont are actually giving Blank a higher level of respect tonight, I feel, compared to really any other game they've played so far. And that includes against AHQ last night, who, need I remind you, are currently tied in the standings with Blank. So, I mean, just from that on paper, you would assume they would give them the same level of respect, but they're actually really understanding what Blank can do, and Blank are making them fight for it as well.
Let's see how far further Blank can make Ardeont fight. 2-for-0 so far the scoreline. Ardeont are in the lead, and we're about to head into the dreaded assault map, and that's all going to happen right after this break. Thank you for sticking through that break with us as we're about to head into map number 3 of the series. Ardeont taking on Blank, 2-0 in the lead so far. And I might just remind everyone, Ardeont still undefeated in maps.
Yeah.
This could be Blank's last chance.
Yeah, honestly, odds are it will be as well, just because of Blank's own record already on assault maps. And Orisa and Winston gonna do a bit of a shuffle there for us.
It's a line walk.
Orisa moves like so smoothly, moving sideways. It's actually really impressive. But it is going to be Temple of Anubis being the pick for Ardeont, and like you said, already 2-0 up. So now with that home side pick on Assault, already Blank's traditionally weakest game mode of the 3. I know we do say that a lot, but it really is significant. I mean, yeah, they have that kind of one last chance, but this is also the toughest challenge for them yet in terms of picking up a map win in this series.
The other thing to consider was, this is kind of the turning point in the AHQ and Ardeont series where AHQ looked rather competitive for the most part. Then we got to Temple of Anubis and it was all Ardeont.
Yeah, I can name a few pulse bombs that had something to do with that.
Even those aside, it was very
absolutely
Ardeont favored. Like pulse bombs and no pulse bombs, everything else was also just on point.
Exactly, and that's the thing I kind of wanted to touch on here as well, because for different reasons, this Blank Ardeont matchup is looking very competitive, much like the AHQ Ardeont matchup last night. I would even argue more so, purely based on the level of respect Ardeont appear to be giving Blank in terms of the restraint they're showing, and Blank are still giving them a very real challenge. But you're completely right, last night against AHQ, this was where AHQ finally kind of hit their limit, and the moment you crack a little bit under Ardeont, the moment you blink for 1 second, they're going to absolutely run away with it for you. So Blank cannot relax for the slightest moments, and this is already going to be their toughest challenge.
And I want to speak to that respect that they're being given as well, because that's also a strength from Ardeont that says they know how to play to the skill level of their opponents. You'd be happier if they didn't respect you. You'd be happier if they still played against you like they have played against some of the lower ranked teams in the season so far, because then Blank would have more opportunities to punish against Ardeont. But because Ardeont are learning, they're adapting, they're pulling back when needed to, when they've needed to, that's made it so much more difficult for Blank to stay in the game.
Certainly speaks positively as well for Ardeont for their matchup tomorrow against Flash Wolves, whom they are currently tied first with, and indeed looking to maintain the opportunity to win that matchup and gain an outright lead. Because, by the way, if they were to lose to Blank here and then beat Flash Wolves tomorrow, technically in the head-to-head, they would have won and would be first place, but they would actually be tied in scoreline. So they kind of want to make it an absolute thing. You know, they want the head-to-head to be a victory. They want the scoreline to reflect it. And Ardeont are very much on track to do that.
And I want to say, this is going to be an incredibly dominant round-robin run for Ardeont if they do complete this 7-0, if they beat Flash Wolves tomorrow, and even more impressive on top of that, if they do it undefeated in maps. So, again, for Blank and for Flash Wolves, let's see if they can take these maps.
This is interesting. Going to be 2 Sombras, one for each team, and it's actually going to be Huss picking up the Sombra rather than Gunba on the side of Blank. So technically this is a triple DPS on the defense from Ardeont.
Certainly is, and we've seen plenty of Jeff Sombra beforehand.
Hello.
And Huss is getting, okay, so we're going to do a little bit of Mango Jai.
Yeah, this is the Hong Kong Attitude special. Moving very far ahead.
Animo low.
Yeah, Animo very low because they weren't actually expecting Huss to be here. Well, now that they know all about it, the pressure is going to start to come in from Blank, but Jeff picks EU up. That's actually huge.
The issue with this is Huss isn't a part of the fight. Now it's a 4v6 because Huss is still wrapping on the side trying to look for health packs. Finally, he joins the fight, but now I think the rest of Blank Esports just have to fall out.
Yeah, and Huss is going to be able to retreat, but he's able to retreat further into Ardeont territory, but it seems to have thrown them off for just enough time for Ursa to get picked out. This is now potentially an opening for Blank. Jeff has his EMP, Huss nearly at his, but Huss getting pressured out. DM, good follow-up on that one, was aware of where the translocator was, and now Jeff can kind of freely EMP to secure this fight out. Goes for it as they lose Republic. They are going to have to commit the sound barrier as well. Actually, Blank really want to keep this pressure up, but Ursa now rejoining the fight. The extra pick on Huwu's mech.
Blank are in this. They still have double support.
They're in it for the long haul. And committing indeed with that Transcendence. DM getting picked in that. Now Huss can use the EMP if needed, but I think at this point he actually wants to hold on to it. They've got the pressure onto Jeff and Ursa both, who are a little split up. Good hack onto Republic. They can't get too much with it. They actually go ahead and commit those final 2 ultimates, the Pulse Bomb and the EMP, and in so doing will close out the first point. Don't have too much of an opportunity to snowball point B, but Huss is at least going back to continue the setup.
Absolutely. I don't know if he's going to get this hack done or not.
It's already actually his.
Is it his? I can't tell.
It
Oh,
is.
there it is. It still is his. So I was concerned because he did die previously. So I was wondering if he died, did the health pack go over? It nearly went over. In fact, you could see that DM was protecting it. DM just needed to have some shots at the Huss, and maybe Jeff would have handed it onto the other side.
All they have to do is kind of last out this EMP, and well, they completely don't. That is a full commit out of Ardeont, though, I will say. So Blank can at least feel good about the fact that they're going to have some other ultimates coming up online now. They kind of did exhaust what Ardeont had, but they're going to lose a bit of that health pack control that Huss just worked so hard to get.
And now Ardeont definitely get their health pack control back as well. The one concerning thing for Blank Esports is I don't know if it was really worth their while to get ahead of themselves. You started to hack the health packs behind on this cap B before you've even won A. You can do that if you're very confident winning A, but the other thing that happens is Huss is not joined in the fight. It feels like a 5 versus 6 because Huss is doing other things.
It kind of does sometimes, yeah, and is still trying to charge up that EMP. They're going to go ahead and commit along the side now. Ardeont charging to try and cut off the column, but not going to have too easy a time for it. They do catch Gunber, so unless this counter trades in now from Blank, they probably won't even get a third out of this, and Erster picking up even more. This is really on lockdown from Ardeont.
It's starting to look like AHQ versus Ardeont all over again on Temple Observers. This is exactly how they like to play. Who's going to get staggered out here as well, just for a little while longer. And you start to see the pieces fall into place for Ardeont. They get the favorable trades, they win the ultimate battles, they get a hit on economy, and Blank Esports are now going to struggle to find an opening because they no longer have that health pack control. Huss is still onto the Sombra. He's going to get this EMP play, but after that, I don't know if he should stick on.
Going to be popping Eat You up onto the Reaper as well, so a bit of a change attack as well out of Blank here. See if it pays off, because Ardeont have a good rack of ultimates up, so Huss is going to need to land a very good EMP here.
Certainly, Jeff is so close himself. A good EMP from Jeff.
Ooh, Huwu. That's a forced self-destruct out of Huwu. And look at the position. It is not ideal as the hack comes out from Jeff, meaning Huss can't use his own EMP. And they're already just kind of behind in this fight. Like I said, Huss really needed to get a strong EMP off, but didn't actually go early enough for it to count.
And even the Reaper pick coming up from IU, which is specifically here to try and counter the EMP out, where an EMP does come down and you're not as effective as you are on something like Tracer. They even have the kill onto DM. DM threw out a pulse bomb, killed himself during the pulse bomb, and still not enough for Blank to come back in. Still 4 ultimates available for Ardeont. They won that with only an EMP.
And Huss, by holding on to this EMP and indeed the Sombra pick, is really hurting the team a little bit now because they don't have health pack control like we've been saying. Need to convert it now, already low as he tries to retreat to the 1 health pack they do have. And if he goes down before he gets that EMP off, it would be disastrous. But they're in now with the Transcendence and the pick on Jeff. That's the EMP. Looking to close out more kills now so they can at least get themselves that third. But the sound barrier from Animo has kept them clean throughout the rest of the fight. They can pick up Gunber. Trade backs though as they close down on Erster. That is a key one for them. DM can still turn this one back around, but aside from that, they are lean on ultimates. Committing the EMP is good for them, gives DM the space he needs to go off as he gets Eat You up with the sticky, and again repelled with no third for Blank. And I think they need a change off this Sombra.
And that was so well played by Ardeont because they had all the tools to defend that. Despite the EMP coming out of Huss, Animo stayed out of it. He came back and used the sound barrier to protect his team. That has the same effect as a Transcendence coming in to protect the team post-EMP. Jeff then came in with his own EMP. That really secured the deal as well. The pulse bomb stick onto IEU up, and now Gumber's going to be the one on the Reaper.
Yeah, they're going for a triple DPS here, and it means they're keeping Huss on the Sombra. I suppose I can understand the logic here, given that they are keeping extra DPS into the mix, putting EU up back onto the Tracer, but they do lose the Death Blossom charge they had.
And I do, exactly, and I have to be concerned now about the fact that they're playing compositional catch-up. You're the one constantly changing heroes. You're the one constantly behind in economy.
And already losing RQT as the ult coming out of Erst, the slam dunks EU up. The pressure is just so unrelenting. And that was triple DPS Blank. You would have thought that with all that damage, they could have killed Republic, but they just couldn't close it out.
Now, you know, even you have to consider the metagame as well. Ended up going onto the Reaper in the first place was because he was concerned about the EMP. As a Tracer player, if you're hacked, you're done. You got a 150 HP, you need your mobility. Without it, you are just dead. So end up actually going back on the Tracer now. Gumber's going onto Reaper because he's also concerned about the EMP. You don't want to be the Zengarde in that situation. Jeff is down, but Jeff will respawn.
Yeah, and that actually means Huss is going to get the first EMP. Jeff will be able to come in with the second one to close it out. And yeah, already killed by Erster. You're right, could not close out on DM because of that sound barrier as well. And now Erster continuing to go off, has so far gone completely unanswered on this Doomfist.
And you have to consider now, we go back to the Sombra versus Sombra gameplay. As the attacking team from Blank Esports, you will always charge EMP slower. That means you will always have less opportunities to actually use that EMP than the defending team. Jeff is going to have it before you every single time. Huss smartly going to go onto the Doomfist. Gumba now going back onto the Zenyatta as well. I like that they're fixing the problems with the composition, but they don't have time for this because they're not going to get the ultimates up in time either.
Like you said, playing compositional catch-up, finally getting pressure onto Erster, but he's got health packs he can retreat to, and indeed does so. DM, both supports with one pulse bomb, and that's just going to mean Blank have to give this fight up already so that they can preserve what little time they have for one last fight.
And DM, you know, dishing out the pain of both AHQ and Blank Esports in similar fashion. This is exactly what Ardeont are going to do to close out this map. They just used the pulse bomb. Nothing else was committed there, which means Ardeont are stacked and stocked and ready to defend and fully hold out Blank Esports. Don't even give them one tick.
Good catch on Michelle, gives them a bit of a window, but they need to do something with that window. Erster trying to get a pick as he moves around to the backside. Now going to try and close in on them. Date onto Belter! They were right there! They could see the indicator! This time it's Erster instead of DM getting both supports. It's only 12 seconds remaining, and no one from Blank is on this point because they are all dead. Who gets DM? But it's only to look good because they are dead on the point itself. Trill going to die in the Primal Rage, and yes, that is a pro Winston. Blank, overtime going to disappear. Good measure out of Michelle there to throw in the self-destruct. No third, absolutely nothing, and frankly nothing even close to a fight win for Blank on that point B offense.
And not even the helicopter Primal Rage when Trill can save Blank in the final moments there. And you have to really commend both the DPSs, double kills with the ultimates. When you see the meteor strike coming down, you already know it's over because Blank were falling out. Half the team was somewhat committed, half the team were routed out, and the half the team that got routed out got double killed. In fact, triple killed by Erster because he landed the rocket punch directly after that. And once again, even if Erster dies, he's done his job.
That was...
He's not impressed. He's saying, give me flash wolves.
Ouch. Yeah, I'll be honest, if I was him, I wouldn't be impressed in equal measure. Blank, like I said, not even close to a single fight win to cap a third, let alone the entirety of point B. Every single fight was lost very, very quickly with little to no counter picks. That is about as bad as it can go. And Ardeont just have it on absolute lockdown. Like you said, kind of a repeat of what happened against AHQ yesterday.
And the thing about Blank is, actually, there were some windows they could take advantage of. How were Blank coming out ahead in some of the other attacks, or rather some of the other fights on both Lijiang and King's Row? Well, what Blank were doing was they were able to keep compositions, favorable composition they were comfortable on, they execute very well on, and eventually get themselves a lead in the ultimates. Even if you're failing in fights, you're eventually going to get the lead into ultimates. Because they were both failing in fights and then also playing compositional catch-up by changing heroes consistently because they couldn't find something that worked, they never had the ult lead in economy.
And they finally changed up to what was going to be the composition they wanted to really push it over the line with. But because they had opted to keep Huss on the Sombra for so long, they only had one fight with that. I can't help but feel that had they got more fights with that composition in which DM and Erster did not have their ultimates, they actually could have got a fight win. They kind of shot themselves in the foot while Ardeont was shooting the other one.
And even with DM killing himself in his own with his own pulse bomb, it was a 6v5 as well. You really got to look at those situations and wonder for Blank what went wrong, but they have an opportunity now to fix that.
And an early pick on the Jeff is a good way to start. Animo is putting on pressure though, of all people. They need to really kind of beat back the tide, and Ardeont are going to try and force them to get onto the point itself. And as they do so, Trill and Gunba getting killed in the rotation. Now the rest of the team completely exposed. Huwu is only one tank and cannot protect all these members. That's already going to be a cap for Ardeont.
And the youngest and newest player, well, I'm not going to say youngest because I don't know, but Republic picking up the majority of the kills here, looking to get one into Huwu as well. This has been a very quick A so far. The best that Blank can hope for is a little bit of a token stall to really allow them to set up for B, because Gumba needs to get those hacks going, and importantly, has to have an EMP before Ardeont commits.
And that is very quick. The saving grace, in a way, it was actually so quick that Ardeont really don't have any ultimates, but the ones they do have...
Close, though.
Yeah, we've already seen the few ultimates they do have in Pulse Bomb and soon to be Dragon Blade close out fights. They only need a third.
So Gumba has to go here before the ultimates comes up. They have to win this before Ardeont really hit their stride.
He's trying to get right in the thick of it, and there it goes down now, right into the middle of the team, but he instantly dies, was not able to translocate back out. Hassan for retreat as well. DM gets a kill. AD Up's Pulse Bomb goes wide. Now Erster Ursa opening up with the Dragon Blade. Blank are already dropping like flies, and they have got absolutely no counter trades. That's going to be it. It's over. It's done. Ardeont, 6 minutes 25 left on the clock just to add insult to injury. They shot both your feet out, then your kneecaps, and then you in the face.
That is, I don't want to ever be on the receiving end of that. That sounds terrifying. So.
And you know what? After all that, they still had 1 bullet left in the chamber.
It did feel that way because really the pieces were at play there. What was Blank going to do? They were going to use the EMP. That was going to be their window. Then they were going to get the kills during the EMP. Gumba shot down straight away. The rest of the members down straight away. You just stop Ardeont from using their ultimates during those 6 seconds. You're not going to get the win in those 6 seconds. They come out with this massive advantage. Then they take you out and call Blank Esports. Nothing they could do in that situation after the EMP couldn't pick up enough.
That was overwhelming from Ardeont. I mean, we said yesterday against AHQ, Assault, specifically Temple of Anubis, kind of ended up being a real turning point of the series. Up till that point, it had felt quite competitive, even though Ardeont were technically still the ones winning. And then Temple of Anubis was even actually competitive for a moment and then ended up being a bit of a shutout beyond that. I would say this was much more of a shutout from the side of Ardeont. Blank on Assault there. It is their weakest map mode. I am beginning to dare say that it is Ardent's strongest. That was a really, really rough showing for Blank and a really, really dominant one for Ardeont, continuing this map win streak.
Exactly. Now 3-0 exactly in this matchup, and 18-0 in map scores, 6-0 in the standings, retaking that first position. The only team now standing in their way is Flash Wolves, and still Ardeont are yet to drop a single map. Maybe it could have happened on King's Row. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I want to say for Lijiang as well, that's probably the one map that I got to be more concerned for, because Temple of Anubis, it's Assault. We know Blank are not favored on that one, but actually going to Lijiang, they are more favored. Let's take a look at the replay.
Yeah, and this was on Blank's offense. So Huss coming in around this backside ended up getting picked off. The saving grace here for Blank is actually purely that their respawns are closer. And they took a very long time to start converting these kills through. It was because they were just barely going even and finally got themselves in a position where actually Ardeont were a bit too split that they were able to capitalize. They also got some ultimates up that they leveraged very nicely. And you can see here, there are kind of two halves of Ardeont on two separate sides of the point. Blank, as they respawn and reinforce, are able to kind of move between them and set themselves up such that they can dive one half and then the other half, then one half and the other half, etc., until eventually they can just kind of close it out.
Well, the timing on ultimates was very important there because RQT and Gumba were so close to hitting their own ultimates. That was the window for Ardeont to go in and neuter those supports like they usually do, because both RQT and Gumba survived. You had a Transcendence into a sound barrier, or vice versa. They both used them one after the other. Then Huss came in with the final blow of the EMP as well. All the correct ultimates for Blank Esports came on at the right time. Let's take a look at the next replay now. Going into Camp B, and this is Huss already getting the early kills in sort of the second to last fight, if I'm not mistaken.
So technically the second to last fight, but in fact that kind of last fight never truly happened because of the shutdowns that happened. But this was Ursa really just going off. I mean, to pick off Huss and Gunba as one DPS taking down two, I mean, excuse the pun, that is punching above your weight. And to me, that's saying that Blank aren't actually covering their setup paths well enough. This is something we see Ardeont and actually Flash Wolves do a lot, where they kind of cut off your column. Normally they're getting supports or maybe picking out a Winston somewhere in there even, who's about to be diving in and isn't expecting that flank right there and then. But for it to be both the DPSs tells me that something went horribly wrong in Blank's position.
Let's take a look at the next replay now, and this is going to be, I think it's a little further on as the final attack coming up from Ardeont. Look at the EMP play from Gumba. This is critical, so he's positioning now, catches the majority of the team, but there are no kills. The rest of Blank don't even enter. They don't go through the choke. Trill finally decides to do that, but it's a little bit too late. The EMP subsides. Animo now with the ultimate. Ursa now with the ultimate as well. And everybody from Ardeont are pulling on those trigger fingers. So that's it. You had one shot to really take down Ardeont. You EMP'd, but you didn't have the follow-up, and unfortunately, you don't get the win.
Exactly. And the thing is, he was looking for a great position to do it, where he could catch the whole team. Actually, Ardeont knew that. They knew that the EMP would be up, and they knew that that was a great spot to EMP. So they kind of baited it in a way. And Gunba actually made a bit of a misplay there in, I think he actually may have not had a translocator set up. He had no way of getting back out, and they were expecting follow-up to happen in there, but they couldn't. They really couldn't, especially not with it Gunba or was it Haas on the Sombra at the end? I believe it was Gunba.
It was Gunba.
Yeah, so at the moment Gunba went down, it was because A, he was expecting follow-up, and then B, his death ensured that there would be no follow-up. And from that point on, honestly, Blank were kind of in disarray.
Well, it's kind of like the difference between Ardeont and the rest right now does look like this. When Ardeont want to make an EMP play, everyone goes in before the EMP comes out. Therefore, when the EMP comes down, everyone's already in position to follow up. You look at what Blank were doing, they EMP first, then people want to follow up. You're already too late by that stage because part of the EMP is already gone. You've already telegraphed your play, and Blank haven't made the move first.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between the two teams right now.
Exactly.
And that's why Ardeont can make a solo EMP play, get a full team wipe, and use no other ults, which is something they've done time and time again against AHQ and now against Blank.
Absolutely. I mean, indeed, Gunba, or rather Sombra as a whole, has still been a bit hit and miss for certain teams, which is kind of interesting given how much of a staple it is. Because I will actually say there are other teams that Ardeont has beaten who have that same kind of cleanliness on the Sombra specifically, notably Hong Kong Attitude. But, I mean, on the whole, you have to start to question who is going to be able to take down Ardeont. They do still have Flash Wolves to come up against tomorrow, but actually Ardeont are on the cusp of having a perfect round robin with no maps dropped.
Exactly, and Michelle picking up the play of the game for the D.Va, so well deserved there. Republic also had a really good showing, a lot of kills on the Winston, very clean, structured play. Ursa for the first time, I might even say, was probably not the star of the show. DM had some very good moments, but it is good to highlight some of the tanks in there. Like I said, Republic being the other person that I really admired that I thought played quite well in that series. And, you know, maybe one day as well. It's really difficult because all of these other players steal the limelight, and you forget sometimes, you know, Animo and Jeff are in there as well.
yeah.
Your team is so good, everyone steals your limelight.
Kind of, yeah. But, and I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the things Michelle did. The specific one I brought up was on King's Row in the follow-up on Ursta with the Nano Blade combo they'd thrown on him to avoid the one shot that can come out of Zenyatta right clip, especially in those really close quarters. So, you know, just little micro things like that. Like Michelle's selection in when he follows up to keep teammates safe, when he pulls back to keep support safe, when he goes in with DM, especially to follow up on kills and close out fights. He's honestly got it down to a science. He is unequivocally the strongest D.Va player in this tournament.
So far, anyway, at least, you know, and not in a flashy way, because you look at guys like Lazy Titan from last season, Hihi in this season, he's good because he gets a lot of kills and self-destructs, very flashy plays. Michelle's kind of that unsung hero. He's good because he's done his job as that sort of tanks, flex, maybe even flex kind of support player that he's doing on the D.Va with the Matrix, but that's going to be match number 1 actually in the day out of the way now. 3-0 for Ardeont so far, or rather so far in the tournament, I might say, because they're still undefeated. 7 or rather 6-0 in the total match scoreline. Next match coming up is going to be Hong Kong Attitude and AHQ Esports Club rounding up the second match of the day, and that all happens after this break.